Hello, visionary. This is Raquel Reyna. I'm going to have a deep share in this video. I want to speak on my shared death experience. So, I'm in the process of teaching Death, Dying, and Bardo. For those of you who don't know me, I am a human design teacher. My background is in spiritual psychology. I have my master's degree in spiritual psychology, and I've been having spiritual experience, out of body experiences since my early 20s. I believe I was 20 years old when I had my first experience. I was traveling in Europe and I had my first as a radical militant atheist who was running all types of shenanigans to travel all over the world. I wouldn't say a drug addict or an alcoholic because it was never that bad. I was just an extreme personality and having a lot of fun at that age. And I had no system to know when enough is enough as a projector. I was quite extreme in my partying and in my behavior. And it's amazing that I really came out of it all alive. I hitchhiked all the way across from the south of Italy all the way up to um to Venice, and I did all kinds of crazy stuff. I had an amazing time, but I had no understanding of God. I had no understanding of spirituality. I was born and raised in the San Fernando Valley, and I did not tap into my spiritual awakening until while I was traveling, I got introduced to the Bible code, the original Torah, and how it aligned to um, patterns that were impossible to be written by man. And if you haven't checked out the Bible Code, I'll leave some links in the description, but it is really profound. And I took a class on it and my mind was blown. And the class was a week long and it was all day and there was really no sleeping. And I went into an altered state of consciousness where I connected fully to the divine God source. It made me question everything I believed. It made me question my path, my life, everything. After that experience, I did a deep dive into the I Ching, which is a powerful book of change and a book of synchronicities. And it explains the tarot. It explains why you see things in palms, palm reading. It explains how people can read tea leaves. It shows you that everything we look at, it really explains feng shui. It explains why everything we see is symbolic, and you can read it and understand what it is teaching us and showing us in the moment for our life. So today, the I Ching is deeply integrated into human design, and it shows us how to read our DNA codes because it also maps to your DNA. So that was the next book I read. And then I went deep into the Carlos Castaneda series. And I met my first Nagual teacher, which at that time was the author of the Four Agreements. He is a deep Nagual shaman, Don Miguel Ruiz. Before he was famous, he was teaching out of his living room. And I was one of those first early students learning about shamanism and spiritual awakening, dreaming, manifestation. And from there, I traveled all over the world. I went to Egypt, Peru. We went down to Mexico and Teotihuacan. I journeyed to discover more truths about myself, to understand what these spiritual awakenings were teaching me. Some of the experience I had at that time were out of body experiences where I stepped out of my body and literally saw myself on the couch, touched my cheek, and had all kinds of lucid dreaming. I had experiences with gurus showing up in my room, speaking to me, but I could never really decipher all of these experiences and what was happening. I got very confused, and I still didn't have the drinking under control, and I didn't have the healing aspect as part of my journey. As I've been teaching and living more aligned because of human design, I understood, and I also have been on a deep healing journey, healing my body from toxins, doing cleansing and uh, Reiki, energy healing, spiritual psychology, releasing the reasons I was drinking, which was just, I'm an undefined solar plexus. So I had a lot of repressed emotional things that I didn't know how to process. And so I learned how to feel, I learned how to process, I learned how to heal, learned how to not use substances to deal with my feelings and my emotions. And so it's taking me to where I am today as a teacher. And one of the things that through human design, because it helped me so dramatically live correctly, create a career and a job, having six figures as a projector and a creative person. So living a life that's unique to me, not pushing myself into a box for corporate America like I did for many years, or even trying to be an artist where I was living in a world where there was no spirituality. There was just um, trying to get ahead and being a performer. That didn't suit me either. It's taken me a very long time to find myself. So today, as I've gone through all the aspects of human design, the place I find myself in now is in the death, dying, and the bardo. The death sequence and unraveling of each month, how we most of our life is ruled by the sun, but our death is ruled by the moon and the emotional flow that moves through us every 28 days, and the emotional decision to choose life and to choose your uniqueness, to choose whether you're going to create anew each month or begin the decay. This is much of what the death sequence is about. And as I began researching this, I realized that I have been obsessed with near death experiences and studying the transition of life for a very long time. And because I did so much research with Dolores Cannon and other uh, near death experiencers, their stories, Anita Mojani, and many, many others, I realized that there are out of body experiences where you tap into those dimensions. There is near death experiences. This is when people literally have their heart stop and they transition. There are things that are absolutely proven if you doubt these experiences are real. For example, people are out of their body and they may be in the ambulance if they had an emergency in that regard. They're able to tell you who the emergency workers are, where they were sitting in the, ambulance, what they were doing. There's been documentation after documentation of these types of things where someone is completely out, knocked out, unconscious, and they've died, their hearts stopped, and they become aware, they become conscious. Now, some people have near death experience and they don't bring back any memories. So it's a really interesting study. But one of the things that happens is that when somebody does bring back the memory of their experience, whether they spoke to somebody who's already transitioned, they spoke to God, they spoke to their guides, there are similarities that happen. A lot of them talk about life reviews, where their entire life is documented. Every single thought, every single word, action, deed is felt by them, and they feel every single person that they've interacted with. So if they did something to hurt someone, they would literally feel not only what they did, but how it affected the other person. So I need you to contemplate that for a minute. The life review is detailed by thousands of people who have had these types of experiences. That means thousands of people having the exact same experience, knowing things that have happened to people that they have talked to. That means everything is being recorded in a degree that our minds, human minds, can't comprehend. There is a detailed recording system in this matrix, what human design would call the program, the illusion, the Maya. So when people talk about this being assimilation, I think the level to the degree which it is beyond our comprehension. But if you think of a computer and everything being documented, every single thing you write, everything you type being documented on that computer, well, that's the life. Every single thing is recorded. And it makes you realize that we are here to understand every thought. We're here to understand how every action affects the whole, how every judgment is felt and seen by other people, and how deeply when we love and overcome any insecurity or jealousy, to be kind and generous to the people in around us. We are embodying the truth of our existence, what we are here to do. So many people feel and believe that we are only driven to accomplish our goals, to reach certain levels of money making, manifestation, or success. I don't believe this is true. Abundance is our natural state, and we are here to have our needs met. But we are here to tap into the dimensions of love and God and divine force, embody it, and allow it to move us into healing, love, kindness, and transformation. So, the commonalities of people who have touched and done near death experiences, touched God, touched this experience, is that when they come back, they're changed. They're completely changed. They begin, oftentimes, a divorce will happen because the people they're with don't believe them, don't believe their experiences, or they almost all of them begin a healing process where they realize these vehicles are sacred. Almost all of them stop drugs, drinking, any kind of behavior that hurts themselves. Their lives oftentimes begin to get turned on with connection to the other side, with skills and tools they've never had before, and with healing abilities. I've seen, if you looked at Anita Mojani, she healed herself of like stage 4 cancer. She knew she was going to heal the body. There are other people who've had that exact same thing. They've healed from people who have had back injuries. Doctors said they would never walk again. They had a near-death experience. They healed. There's cases of people healing from AIDS. There are so many cases that if you do have a health crisis, this would be the first place I would look to know that healing is possible. So, after a lot of my research, I realized that there's also something called shared death experiences. Now, the reason I feel the need to share my experience is because I notice that the more I talk about it, the more people feel safe to share what's happened to them. When you've had these kind of experiences, most people think you're crazy. Most people think that you're lying or that it doesn't quite, add up or make sense, or very few people are open to hearing about these types of out of body experiences, transformational spiritual experiences. And even in today's day and age, where there's so much law of attraction, manifestation, spirituality, it's still hard to really speak about these types of things. And I feel like it's imperative that we discuss transitions, we discuss what death is about, we discuss out of body experiences, spiritual transformative experiences. And then for those of you that are confused or need support, I do think that human design is a really important piece for the practical. Now, human design can cause, if you aren't doing your healing work, if you're not healing from addictions, you're not healing from your addiction to your mind, then even human design will take you down very severe, crazy rabbit holes. You have to do healing journeys, in my opinion. The healing is what creates the connection to the divine force, and healing from the mind. The mind is an addiction as well. And so I think having these discussions of spiritual experiences, what to do about it, how to heal, and how to prepare for your transition that all of us are going to have. No one gets out of here alive. No one's talking about it, and no one really understands why we're here or why it's important to contemplate this in relationship to our life. We're not just here to have success. We're not just here to shoot for the 6, 7, 8-figure models. We're not here just to accomplish things on the material plane. We are here to live well on the material plane, but there's an awakening happening, an awakening that is bringing us closer to that space beyond the veil, where you're walking with your guides, you're walking with God, you're walking with your spiritual connection. So, discussing this has opened so many doors for me. And every time I bring forward the conversation, people are excited to hear it, they want to know more. And so, this is the beginning of my contemplation around near death experiences, shared death experiences, transitioning, healing, and embodying it with your human design type. So I'm calling all of you to share with me any spiritual experiences you've had, to share with me near death experiences, out of body experience, and shared death experiences, because I want to start the conversation going deeper and connecting to that spiritual grid that makes us feel so deeply safe, so deeply loved, so connected to all that is, that we can transcend all of those places of doubt, of fear, of insecurity. We can step courageously into living a life fearless and full. And sometimes when I felt this energy and this dynamic, I would start manifesting, and it was not correct for me. And so I had so many downloads and spiritual experiences. Like I said, in my 20s, I didn't even find out I was a projector until my 40s. So I had 20 years of chaos, 20 years of feeling inspired and having downloads and manifesting all kinds of drama and pain. And so I really am committed to the merging of the spiritual world into a practical living experience so that you can have a great life. Finally, where it's brought me is that I've had several shared death experiences. I had 3 people in my life, major people in my life, transition. When I was living in San Francisco, I was an artist. I had a very successful performance band. We had a cult following, or, it wasn't like we were famous, but we had a cult following and famous following in San Francisco. Had we stuck with it, it would have gone that direction, but that wasn't what my soul guided me to do. And at that time, I had a very deep connection uh, with a boyfriend who died of a drug overdose. Yes, I was in the rock band and modern dance art Burning Man scene in San Francisco in the late 90s, the early 2000s. And we performed with Jane's Addiction, with War, with all kinds of famous bands, and Hedwig and the Angry Inch. We performed with very successful. We were performing in the Cow Palace and the Fillmore, all kinds of places. And I was in so much darkness and pain at the time. Success in the material world is not spiritual success. I connected with a very wounded bird who I found out later was a heroin addict, and I had a shared death experience when he died. That has been really hard for me to talk about. And it's taken me all of this time to figure out what happened. And all of my research through my near-death experience, listening and podcasts, has given me the courage to share this shared death experience and to explore it on a deeper level. I feel like it makes me want to cry just thinking about it, because I've pushed it down so much and I've had not really the space to understand what happened. And then it happened again when my dad died. And then my mom died 2 years or 3 years after my dad. Now, my mom and I have a totally different karma. So my karma with my ex and my dad were actually quite similar. They were very wounded men, both heavy in addiction. And that has been a lot of my karma. And the cycle, the karma, the shared death experience that I had with them are revelatory and mind altering. And so I want to begin a series sharing about these experiences. And if it touches one person or 2 people, or if somebody has experiences they want to talk about, if you've had and witnessed people dying and had transformative experiences, These are called shared death experiences, and I'm going to do part 2, breaking down the experience. But I'm also calling my community to discuss this deeper dimensional energy. As the veil is getting thinner, we're moving into 5-dimensional consciousness, which means that we are moving into a space of oneness and understanding that we are connected to all that is. And when we open the door and we open these grids and we have experiences, we need to share them and bring the energy here to earth for transformation. And what I've learned now is that this energy can also cause a lot of chaos and confusion if you aren't living correctly, if you're not healing, if you don't know your uniqueness, if you're not, creating a life that also is grounded and practical. And if you're in addiction. And I find it really important for me to talk about that as well, because I am also not an AA person. My greatest addiction was an eating disorder. The eating disorder is about balance. So you cannot cut food out. So you can't do the abstinence thing like you can do with alcohol and drugs. So you have to learn how to balance out the eating and enjoy food for nourishment and learn how to really heal the physical vehicle with nurturing your body. So once I learned how to heal that, I learned how to really be able to have a glass of wine occasionally in a celebration or a glass of champagne. One glass a month sometimes. I learned how to enjoy the beauty of eating and celebrating and being in balance. I've learned how to heal my body, heal these addictions, not through AA, although there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. For me, it was through the spiritual awakening. This spiritual energy was so healing for me because it was so real, that my connection to the divine source was so pure, felt so full, felt so rich and deep, that it was way bigger and so much more fulfilling than anything on this earth plane. And I'm somebody who loved to do ecstasy. I did cocaine. I loved to eat and drink and be very merry and fill a lot of my emptiness with outside substance. And when I began to learn to be with myself, to be present, to slow down, to feel, to study about myself, to do therapy, began to heal, unravel, connect deeper into the divine source. I learned how to meditate and the true essence of what meditation is, which is not just for healing, it's not just for manifestation, but it's also to know who you are and what you are beyond the material plane, beyond the body, and beyond the thinking mind. My guides have really made it clear for me to begin discussing and connecting into this multidimensional grid for healing, for transformation, for spiritual awakening. and to bring human design in as a tool as well. But it needs to be all embodied. I've seen too many human design communities that do not talk about healing. They're running around addicts. I've seen people get lost down the human design rabbit hole and have spiritual crisis. I've seen too many spiritual people not understand their human design. So I'm not saying that I have all the tools in the world. I'm saying these are the tools that have helped me. And because I'm a projector, I have insight, and I'm here to show what things, when you go too far down the spiritual and you're not practical, your life will become imbalanced. If you don't know the basics of your human design, you can go into spiritual crisis. If you're not healing the addiction, you will become addicted to something more. If you just, oh, well, if I just smoke, it's okay. No, that level of addiction is showing you're not healing something. And then your mind will grab hold of it and get you addicted to different thoughts. So this is my calling, my mission to serve on all of these levels, to help, to be of service, to explore deeper aspects of my spiritual journey, and to call all of you to share on a deeper level the spiritual experiences you've had, the crisis you may be in, the addictions you may be suffering from, and the human design questions you might have, all of it. It's time to open the door and let all of these things be seen. This is very new for me to talk about these shared death experiences because I didn't even know what they were. I didn't die, so it wasn't a near death experience. So I never heard of a shared death experience until very recently. And now it's giving me language to discuss what happened to me. And it's been so long, but that's how big the experiences are. They sit and they wait for you to embody them, to share those connections. So when I say the near death experience, people, what they had when they came back, often they were given gifts of intuition, psychic development, and healing. That is what's happened to me. After I had these shared death experiences, I had connection to those on the other side. I had a deeper connection to my psychic ability. I had a deeper connection to helping people, to my insight, to the tools to live and manifest a life that was correct for me, and the healing, to heal the body, to heal the addiction. So my spiritual experiences have impacted and changed my life so radically. And the human design gave me the practical piece. So this is the launching of the deeper dynamic. And it's a calling for anyone who wants to share and talk. I want to have more interviews and more discussions with people who have also had near-death experiences, shared death experiences, out-of-body experiences. So please let me know in the comments below if you've had any of these experiences, if you suffer from any addictions, if you are doing any type of spiritual awakening. I want to hear from you. And in part 2, I will share about these shared death experiences on a deeper level. So thank you for being here. If you made it to the end of this video, let me know. Drop a happy face in the comments if you made it to this point, because I really want to connect with you and love on you. It's been so hard for me to share on this deep level and to just be raw, be real, be myself, and go to my next level. So thank you for sharing the journey with me.